Jai Sarnayan, and welcome to Our Satsang Journey, the BAPS North American Yuvak Yuthi Mundo podcast. We are thrilled to launch this new forum of conversation, and we hope you guys are just as excited as us. But before we dive in, a quick introduction on your hosts. My name is Manav. I'm 24 years old. I graduated from Drexel University with a degree in computer science, and currently I work at Vanguard as a cloud application engineer.
And I'm Prem. I'm 26 years old, graduated from Rutgers University, studied economics, and I work at a youth sports app called Game Changer.
So you might be wondering, why did we start this? Well, nowadays there's a podcast for everything, right? Finance, fitness, cooking, self-help, you name it. But how often do you come across something that speaks to all aspects of your life, right? Your struggles, your responsibilities, your journey as a yuvak or yuvti in today's world. And that's exactly why we did this, because we understand that beyond just satsang, you also have a life as a regular 23, 25, 28-year-old in today's society.
Yeah, so Madhav, I'm really excited about this platform, and I was giving a lot of thought to the idea of just the 20s. And one thing I noticed is that before we hit 20, we kind of don't have to make that many decisions. We do have to make a few decisions, but they're very few. But as we enter our 20s and as we progress through our 20s, those decisions become plenty. And another word that kind of sticks out to me is the concept of responsibility. And it makes sense, right? As you grow older, the responsibilities that you have, whether they're, societal responsibilities, work, secondary education, family, it makes sense for those things to stack up. The part that I wasn't so sure about was sort of how overwhelming they feel.
It's the pressure of the world. So I was actually just having a similar conversation with someone a couple weeks ago. So we were talking about how it seems like every week someone's either getting a hair transplant or they're talking about going to Turkey to get one. And while we were laughing about this, the person I was talking to, he goes, "Hey, don't laugh too much. I might be next in line." Mind you, this person has a full head of hair, so I was a little confused. And so I asked him, "What are you so stressed about that you feel this way?" And he said, "Man, I feel like I'm falling behind." All right, he said, I'm falling behind. And from my perspective, I mean, this individual does great with their seva, has a great job, is very talented musically. So I was surprised because from my perspective, it seems like he's doing very well for himself. He's very successful. And even he is saying that he's falling behind. And so I gave him an analogy, and I want to see your thoughts about it as well. So when I say the term gym influencer, what type of aesthetic do you envision?
Okay, so like a gym influencer. So obviously someone who's probably like on Instagram or Twitter, YouTube, probably like, I don't know, like 100K followers. What's that guy? The one who does that, the face wash in
Ashton Hall.
Ashton Hall, yeah. So someone like that.
Yeah. So physically you see them as, clean cut abs, big muscles, obviously lean, stuff like that. I think the majority of people, when they hear that term gym influencer, that's exactly what they envision, right? But how many people actually look like that versus how many people go to the gym? Meaning you could follow 1,000 gym influencers on Instagram, and yet that would only be 1% or 0.5% of the people that actually go to the gym, right? And so in this example, when you compare yourself to that 0.5% or that 1%, of course you're always going to feel like you're behind, right? You could have a physique that's better than 95 people, but if you're only following the 5 people on Instagram that look better than you, what are you going to think? You're always going to think that you're falling behind. And so that pressure of the world, constantly comparing yourself, is what leads to that feeling of overwhelming anxiety and burden that you were talking about.
Yeah, that kind of like makes me think about something that I've struggled with in my life. So like, as I mentioned to you earlier, 26 years old, been working for like something along 5 years. Prior to that, like a couple summers of interning. And it's kind of crazy being 26 years old, I'm not gonna lie. But the part that I think sticks out to me is like LinkedIn is something that we all use. Like you're on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, and one thing I noticed was that like I would consistently be checking LinkedIn. I think like LinkedIn was created for maybe like to find jobs, but I already had a job. So, but I was still logging in onto LinkedIn, right? And it's interesting because if you were like, I was reading an article, and these social media companies, like you mentioned social media with the gym influencers, like whether it's Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, their literal monetization method is built behind algorithms that are showing you other viral content that went viral, not because it's genuine or correct all the time, but just because it sort of raised the most eyeballs or likes or whatever the case is, right? And so one thing I noticed in my life is that sometimes I would log into LinkedIn and see a post. And mind you, I'm completely content with my job and I'm completely like at peace with what I'm doing. But because someone, not even in my friend group, but someone in my friend group's like external network got a new job at a prestigious organization, that day I feel like I lost.
So I can relate to that because a very similar thing happened to me. So before I was working at Vanguard, I had another job that was paying less and was more of a non-technical role. So I was good at it, but I just felt like I wasn't able to grow. So I was looking for other opportunities, and I came across this job at Vanguard. I had done some internships there, so I knew a couple managers, reached out to them, asking about this position. And the day that I did that, I started thinking back, or sitting back and thinking, man, if only I get this job. Because everything else is going well in life, right? If only I get this job, I'll have less stress. I'll be successful. That was my definition of success at that time. A month goes by, I do well in the interview, I get the offer letter, and I start feeling this feeling that I was talking about previous month, right? I feel less stress. I feel like I'm happy. I feel like everything in my life is going the way that I need it to. And that lasts for about a week into my job. The end of that first week, I was talking to some folks on other teams, just trying to introduce myself. And I met this guy that was a level 3 engineer. And obviously I'm just starting out, so I was a level 1. I am a level 1 engineer. And he was a level 3, but the interesting thing was he was the same age as me. He's 24, I'm 24. And as soon as I found that out, instantly, I started feeling that, man, I'm lacking. How are we the same age and he's 2 promotions or levels higher than me, right? So the same position that I'm in that used to give me happiness, or I thought would give me happiness, as soon as I reached it, there was bigger fish to fry. And when you get into that like vicious cycle of constantly comparing yourself to other people, you're always going to feel like you're behind.
Yeah, it's like, if you think about it, or at least the way that I am sort of like wrestling with this concept in my mind, is that the actual act of getting the job, like the next job, that responsibility doesn't seem like being the thing that's kind of giving the pressure or is the point of stress. To certain extents it might be, but it doesn't seem like the entire force behind all the pressure. Like, do you think that the job that you were searching for at Vanguard, you were doing it just to sort of grow technically, or do you think?
No, it's also, I would say it's also pressure and how you're being viewed by other people. So, it relates to seva as well, right? Where you might do a certain seva, but you might be more inclined to do something if you know someone else is going to see it, or if you're going to get praised for it, right? So going back to the job example, I think obviously most of it, 70-80%, is me saying, okay, I'm going to be better off financially. It's going to help my family. But that other 20% is, man, now when somebody asks me, if Bram sees me on Monday and he asks me about it, I can say it with more pride. And then Bram's perception of me will be better. So I think that definitely also plays into that decision.
Yeah, since we were talking about fitness, it's kind of interesting, right? Because and I feel the same exact way. That's why I was logging into LinkedIn, and that's why I was trying to get that burst. Like, okay, I posted my new job update. Can everyone see that? Mm-hmm. Is everyone liking that? Is everyone acknowledging that? But that's almost like that ego-driven happiness. It's quick. And it feels like kind of like empty calories, right? It's not like a nutritious meal. It's something that might satisfy you for 10, 15 minutes, for 2 weeks, whatever the case is. But it's finite. And when it runs out, you're back to that same feeling where, okay, I have to get that next hit.
It's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah. And so, one other part that's really interesting is that it's almost a lose-lose situation. Because if you do get that promotion, then okay, it lasted and now it'll last for like 2 months and you got that high, but now you're back to finding the next thing. And God forbid you miss it and you don't get it, then you're shattered because you're like, you're like, what the heck do I do? Why am I like this? What will everyone think of me? Those are things that you don't really want, right? And that kind of makes me think about this one prasang of Pramukh Swami Maharaj. So Pramukh Swami Maharaj basically, the Hari Bhaktos actually, they went up to Pramukh Swami Maharaj and they said to Pramukh Swami Maharaj that, Pramukh Swami Maharaj, we think that you should be nominated and should win a Nobel Peace Prize. And of course, we all know Pramukh Swami Maharaj's life. And Pramukh Swami Maharaj did tons of service throughout his entire life. But in that moment, instantly, Pramukh Swami Maharaj said, I do not need to win any Nobel Peace Prize because my Nobel Peace Prize are his gurus, Shastri Ji Maharaj and Yogi Ji Maharaj. And that feels so much more different than like what I am sort of driving my goals with.
Yeah, I agree. I think for us, because we have that ego, we're constantly seeking validation for every single action. And if we don't get it, then it seems like we weren't as successful, right? We need that to feel like we're accomplishing something or feel like we're being successful.
Yeah, and the point that you brought up about like, okay, fine, there's 100% of an entire spectrum of what we're driving our actions towards. And of course, like we're at maybe 70%. So not all is lost. Like 70% might be because we want to grow in our career. But that 30%, that is, what will people think of me? Am I beating other people in this game that no one's actually really playing? That's holding us back significantly.
So I think for me, see, if I didn't have that 30% where I'm trying to prove myself to other people that I don't even know, right? It's just random people that I'm working with. Then when it's like I'm introduced to somebody else that's an engineer 3 but same age as me or even younger than me, then I don't feel that sense of burning. I don't feel that jealousy or lack of happiness because I know I'm not doing it to compare myself or compete with other people. And it's a very different approach to what Bapa has, right? Pramukh Swami Maharaj, there's a prasang when, right? So Yogi Ji Maharaj's wish was to build Shikarbad Mandir on the banks of the Yamuna River, right? And Pramukh Swami Maharaj waited 32 years before he chose the land to build the mandir on. So think about that. Not even 32 years to complete the building of the mandir. 32 years just to choose the land where it's going to be built.
That's like crazy because if you just think about it, like the perspective of the idea that we're not even 32 years old yet. Mm-hmm. That's our entire life that Pramukh Swami Maharaj just waited for the land that was going to be at the brink of the Yamuna River because Yogi Bapa, his guru, wanted that to be the spot in which the Shikarbad Mandir was built. And like, you know, when we were talking about like that empty calorie satisfaction that we get from ego, if Pramukh Swami Maharaj was driven by ego, there's no way that he would have been able to wait 32 years. Like that's patience to a next level degree, right? To give you a personal example, like currently I'm thinking about, you know, maybe purchasing a real estate property or even thinking about a future home to buy and purchase or build for my own family down the line. And I still have so much time till I probably need that, but it's consistently in my mind. And it's not in my mind because, like I mentioned, I need it, but it's in my mind because if I get it early, I'm perceived as more successful. If I do it in a grand way, then I'm perceived as more skilled.
So yeah, that's crazy because if we were in Pramukh Swami Maharaj's shoes, right, the thing that we would do is take easier land option just because it's quicker, like you said, 5 years or 10 years, which still seems like an insanely long amount of time to wait, by the way. But we would do something like that at the detriment of our long-term success, knowing, hey, this isn't the best land for the mandir, but other people will be able to see that I'm making progress, so I should do it, right? That's probably the approach that we would take, which is obviously not what Bapa did because he had that goal in mind, that whatever I'm doing for my guru. And that's why he was able to maintain patience, even if other people are doubting if he's actually making any progress towards this vision.
Yeah, my favorite, and also, I don't know if you know this, but one of my favorite parts of this entire prasang is even what happens afterwards. Because there was a Gujarati writer, I think by the name of Ajay Unmat, that was his name. And he basically wrote an article after visiting Delhi Akshardham. And he titled it, I'm just paraphrasing here. It was written in Gujarati, of course. But he basically wrote how this is Dili Akshardham is basically a type of building, mandir that's built that basically puts like or outshines the Taj Mahal.
Oh wow.
And so, of course, like that's something that this person had written. But Pramukh Swami Maharaj, when he found out, he immediately called up this Gujarati lekhak. And he knew this person. This person was someone who had met Bapa many times, who had spoken to Bapa many times. And immediately, Pramukh Swami Maharaj had told this writer that, why did you like name the article this? And Pramukh Swami Maharaj immediately said that we did not build this Akshardham out of competition. Like we weren't competing with the Taj Mahal and to see who can be the most beautiful landmark in India. And he had clarity, and he said that this was built only for the vision and the Rajipo of Yogi Ji Maharaj. And like, just think about like the difference, right? Because even after it being built, Pramukh Swami Maharaj is still firm in his vision on why he did that activity, on that construction of that mandir.
Wow. See, I did not know that. I think the craziest takeaway for me about this Ajay Unmat Prasang is the fact that Bapa could have left it alone, right? I think sometimes we do that where we're acting like we're humble, but we know in the back of our minds that someone's saying something good about us, right? Where, like that earlier example I mentioned, where we're doing seva and we know somebody's watching. We won't say, anything to them in person about, hey, did you see what I was doing? But we know that they're talking about it. Whereas Bapa, instead of leaving it alone, he went and addressed it and shut it down and saying, hey, this is not the reason that we built this Akshardham, right? And it just goes to show you that our reaction to success is very different than Bapa's, where sometimes we achieve success and we're not happy because somebody else is achieving more success. And that's how we react even when something goes our way, just because somebody else got something better. So then imagine, how much anger or jealousy we feel when we're getting rejected, when we're not even achieving what we set out to achieve, and then comparing our rejection to somebody else achieving success.
Yeah, and it's natural, right? Like, we all understand that we're not always going to achieve that thing that we're chasing for.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the way that life is going to work. And another example, and this is a prasang that also something that's really famous, is in 1974, Pramukh Swami Maharaj was going on his first foreign tour. Now, for some context, like, this was the first time after Pramukh Swami Maharaj had become guru that he was going to go on a foreign tour to meet his devotees. And basically all the Hari Bhakto that were in India at that time, they had all prepared like a proper farewell sabha.
Historical, yeah.
Yeah, an historical sabha in order to send Pramukh Swami Maharaj off to his foreign tour. And everyone in Africa was preparing night and day for a beautiful sort of, arrival program for Pramukh Swami Maharaj. And basically, as soon as Pramukh Swami Maharaj had arrived in Africa, while he was still on the plane, they unfairly did not let Pramukh Swami Maharaj leave the plane. And that's offensive, and that's something that's not fair, because Pramukh Swami Maharaj had no fault, and yet he wasn't able to leave the plane. And even in that moment, when something had not gone in the way that was planned, Pramukh Swami Maharaj was still at peace. I think of it like, the smallest of things that don't go my way, I'm like completely like shattered, and like my whole day goes basically off schedule, and you can see it on my face. But Pramukh Swami Maharaj, when it's that level of sort of like a mistreatment in some sense, of that degree, Pramukh Swami Maharaj is still at peace.
It always goes back to that thing about what's driving you, right? I think what we've learned is that the responsibilities themselves are not the issue. Everyone's going to face the same sort of responsibilities relatively, right? Family, work life, seva, whatever it is, we have similar responsibilities. That's not the issue. The issue of why we feel that heaviness or that burden is because of what's driving us. Is it ego, or is it the fact that we're doing it to align with Maharaj and Swami's wishes?
Yeah, and we spoke about how it takes intentionality, right? Like you won't be able to like get to that point on autopilot. Like we would all need to work. Like I have to sit there and I need to think about it and I need to work on it, because only then will I be able to step away from the competition that's surrounding me and be in tune with what's truly me. And one other thing that sticks out to me is that, we spoke about how those responsibilities feel really heavy, and that maybe the responsibilities themselves are neutral, But as you mentioned, like if we are able to take away, and it's always going to be there a little bit, but we can actively work to make that share of ego that's driving something smaller and smaller. Like if it's 20%, let's get it to 15%. If it's 15%, let's get it to 10%. But when we get that to a smaller and smaller percentage, and the bigger percentage is our guru's agna, then the responsibilities actually feel lighter. And that's what we're looking for. That's how we're going to be at peace.
Yeah, I agree. I think this has been a great conversation. I think talking out loud about your issues sort of forces you to not only address them, but understand them more. And then you kind of realize that other people are also suffering the same thing. So you're able to come to a general solution that works for multiple different people, even though they're in different, phases of their life. So I think it was definitely very beneficial.
And one thing I want to do is that, we spoke about a lot, and it's not something that's going to be done overnight. Like it's going to take some time, right? This is a process. And one thing that I know that I can do is like even the smallest of things where I notice that my ego is driving me, like take note of it and try to figure out what's the next best step that I can do to be less ego driven. And I think like working with our friends and discussing with our friends and tuning into content like this, we're able to kind of, be more in tune with what our guru wants. But at the end of the day, this was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. I'm still going to remember that you called me an unk.
But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in and joining us on our satsang journey. We would love any suggestions or feedback that you guys have. So please fill out the feedback form in the description, and we'll catch you next time with more real, relevant, and meaningful conversations.
Yes, sir.